Stephanie, if you can, start off talking to us about how you got your start in the oil and gas industry.
Sure. So I actually didn't take the typical path to oil and gas. I grew up in and around West Texas, completely surrounded by the Permian Basin and the heart of the oil and gas industry, but I never was truly exposed to oil and gas until after college, which is a little hard to believe. I was introduced to oil and gas doing title work, so I started in land, and the one thing about this industry is, as you build on that foundation wherever you start, which I've done. I've gone through land, investor relations with a public company, now getting some exposure to marketing and other things. I've found that I love the industry more than I did day one. So it's a unique industry because you always have the opportunity to learn and continue to improve on things, and because it's ever changing, there's surprises around each and every corner, and so it's just ensuring that you've built a team that can be agile in responding to those changes.
Talk to us a little bit more about the path that you've taken to get to where you are today now in your professional career.
Sure. So again, starting off in land, and I worked in title work, land, buying minerals early on in my career. When I first joined Parsley Energy, I did division order work, landman work, worked my way up to finally becoming land manager. Took an opportunity actually during the downturn after OPEC November 2014, and took a role as our investor relations manager, which really gave me a lot of good exposure. I was able to view the company through an investor's lens, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of things, allowed me to think bigger. Ultimately, I transitioned back over to the land department as our vice president of land. This was mid-2016. And then in 2017, became senior vice president of land, acquired marketing responsibilities in 2018, and now I oversee land, marketing, and regulatory.
Well, quite a bit of responsibility there. Can you talk to us about challenges and risks that you've taken and ways that you've navigated through that?
Absolutely. I think, when I think of risks in my career in particular, I think it's about stepping outside of your comfort zone. So I did that when leaving land. Land was everything that I knew, and it was my foundation in this industry. And then stepping outside to go to investor relations, it really pushed me outside of my comfort zone. But I think, the one thing about, taking opportunities, saying yes to opportunities, it has the ability to take you in directions you might not ever see. I never really saw myself taking a step out of land, and I would never change it. I would do it all over again. But it's really just allowing yourself to be exposed to things outside of your comfort zone. You're required to kind of sometimes hit that steep learning curve. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you're building on that knowledge base, and it allows you to have more influence on strategy overall.
That transitions into my next question about advice for younger professionals that may be trying to navigate their world or figure out what they're going to find their career in. Do you have advice there?
Oh, absolutely. I think it goes back to saying yes to opportunities. One thing that I've learned is if somebody gives you the opportunity, it's because they believe you can do it. And so say yes when opportunities come up. Don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone. Every time that I have within my career, I've grown the most. And again, it's not always easy, it's not comfortable, but it really allows you to grow your knowledge base.
And talk to us a little bit about maintaining work-home life balance, if you will. I guess being a mom, a wife, a mother, can you give us a little advice there, shed light on what that's like for you?
Sure, and that's a tricky question. One of the things I will say is that I've experienced a little bit of luxury in the fact that my husband retired when we had our first child. So it was a tricky time. It's a year I'll never forget. We took the company public. Wow. We moved to Austin. I was finishing my MBA and we had our first child. So it was a whole lot crammed into 1 year. But that said, the balance has always been, and I don't know, I guess that I don't really see a division between the two. I kind of view it as this is our life, and I think that kind of takes down the pressures of having to balance everything. this is the life we've built, and the work that I do, I'm extremely passionate about. Now, what I will say is that my husband, earlier in my career, used to always ask me, what are your hobbies? You have to have hobbies. He has a long list of things that he enjoys doing. And ultimately what I told him is what I do, I care a lot about. What we do impacts the world, it impacts people's lives, and that's where my passion is. And so, fortunate for me, my work is my hobby. So there's nothing else really dividing my time away from work and family. So
you find
it definitely helps, yeah.
Stephanie, if you will, let's talk about women in the workplace, and really there can be challenges, but there's a lot of positivity from that, creativity that comes from collaborating, men and women really, and just being there together in the workforce. What are your thoughts there?
We have a special culture, very collaborative environment at Parsley Energy, and that inclusion piece of it is very important to us. As we think about, as I think about women in the workplace, and I have, because my husband retired when we had children, there's certain challenges that women face that I don't necessarily face. That doesn't mean that we don't try to address them and work towards some sort of flexibility. I think it's important to do that. We've got phenomenal women that work at Parsley Energy. I am humbled every day by the women that I work with at all levels and what they bring to the table and how they progress our company forward. And so I think it's important that we focus on some level of flexibility so that we can attract them, keep them in the workforce. It's been they've had a huge impact on our company, and that's something that gender diversification is important to us, that inclusion piece of it. And overall, I would say one thing that I'm most proud of at Parsley is just that collaborative culture. One of the things that I say constantly, and my group hears it pretty often, is just I never want to hear, well, that's just the way that we do it, because a lot of times by not allowing fresh perspective, we can't improve. And so I would say just inclusion and collaboration across the board, but definitely as far as women in the workplace goes, it's necessary that we do what we can to keep them in the workforce, because they're impactful in a very, very positive way.
Great to hear that story. We really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
And congratulations.
Thank you very much, Jessica.
You're very welcome. And for more on honorees like Stephanie, you can find information on Heart Energy